Hi everyone, welcome back to I See Melanie. Today we'll be talking about the fifth and the penultimate episode of the Talamasca, the Secret Order, and it's entitled The Puzzle Palace because there are a lot of puzzles and a lot of weird things going on in this episode. And I have the feeling that I'm going to have more questions for you than, any theories that I have to give you guys. So please help me out because I'm still kind of confused as to why certain things happened, what certain characters' motivations are for their activity. I'm a little confused, so yes, let's just dive into it. But before we do, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, hype up the video, and let's talk about the episode right now. Let's start off with our duo that wasn't so dynamic this episode, Jasper and Guy. So that uncle-nephew vibe, that love fest that I enjoyed so much last week is dead. It's by the wayside, bye-bye to that relationship. And so one thing I'll say, I really do like Jasper as a character. He's a vampire, he's vicious, of course, because they all really are, but he is a vampire of integrity. I mentioned that last week. He has a code in terms of, how he treats other vampires, certain expectations that should be met. And even though he is very vicious and, he'll sick revenants on people if he needs to, but he has a code and he doesn't lie. So I totally get him being upset with Guy for lying by omission by not really explaining who this woman was, Doris in particular. And we'll talk more about Doris later on, the pretty girl, but I'm still kind of confused as to what her motivations are, who she's working with, what exactly she wants ultimately. I still don't feel as though it's very clear. And again, we have another episode to go, so that could be explained next week, but we'll see. Anyway, we'll talk more about Doris in a second. As we learned last week, Jasper wants the 752 because he wants to get more information on his family to see if, I don't know, maybe if any of them are still alive or what the situation is. I do feel, I am not an immortal. I haven't been around for, over a century like Jasper, but at this rate in 2025, and if he left Bolivia for Texas in the 1920s, it's been about 100 years. Can you get over that? And I say that as somebody who loves Louis and Lestat's love, and they've been apart for 80 years, so maybe I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. So I guess, okay, I understand why he wants the 752 maybe, but I think it's time for him to start a new family, because even like Lestat, he was with Nikki died, it took him a long time to get over it, then he found a new man, and he's been obsessed with him since. So maybe Jasper should just go to Manhattan and hook up with Burton. Burton's fabulous, and he's living a good life, and there's the Motherhouse right there. Maybe Burton and Jasper and the Talamasca can all work together like one happy family. I know, I sound ridiculous, but clearly members of the Talamasca are very easily manipulated and will fall under Jasper's, lure and rule. So he could work something out in New York. So I think Jasper should go to New York. So let's talk about Guy, our guy, my guy. My guy, what are you doing? Again, I understand that he has integrity as well. He doesn't want to throw Doris under the bus by revealing who she is, even though Jasper might want to work with her. I don't know, probably not, but maybe. I think Guy, again, he has a code as well, but he also wants to get to 752 so we can find out about his mother. So they're all motivated to find the 752. I get Jasper's motivation. I get Guy's motivation. I still don't 100% get Doris's. But yeah, Doris, it's interesting because Doris, we all know she saved him by setting off the fire and setting Jasper on fire because Jasper was about to go in. However, her mysterious presence in the whole, hotel situation led Jasper to knowing about her. So there's that, but also if she hadn't been there at the hotel, those men, I think Harris is his name, I can't remember, that those men would have killed him. So it's just one of those things, where does it all begin and end, and what's going to happen? I don't know. Guy, he's a good guy. He's very naive, but sometimes even though he is naive and he really doesn't have all that much power, he's able to wield the power that he does have. So say, for example, in that little peep show situation with Helen, for a second, I knew this wouldn't happen because it wouldn't make any sense. But for a second, I was like, oh my gosh, imagine if he's doing like a little routine and then Helen opens the curtains and we see him dancing scantily clad. That makes no sense. I didn't expect it to happen, but it would have been hilarious. Anyway, so he tells Helen, like, you're going to help me, you're going to help this friend of mine, and I know that you care about me to an extent. Because I do think, even though I said Helen was trash, episodes ago, I do think she cares about him, and I do think that she doesn't want this young kid's life to be even more messed up by the Talamasca than it already has been, because she is like old enough to be his mother, and her life is still tormented by what happened with the Talamasca, right? And so, she hooks him up, even though she's a little irritated with the whole Doris tag-along situation, but she does it. But anyway, let's talk about Helen and Olive. Okay. So Helen and Olive meet. But before they meet, we see Olive on the phone with Jay saying, hey, stuff with Helen is a little weird. Like, what's going on? So this takes me back to this whole conversation. They mentioned it today in this episode about Guy's life story and all the Talamasca involvement or the Helen involvement has been off book. And this mission is off book. How off book is it really? So many Talamasca people know he's Talamasca. The Talamasca trained him. The Talamasca is putting him up in all these places. So it's not off book, really. Anyway, so Olive sees this weird stuff going on with Helen. Helen is suspicious of Olive, and I was kind of confused as to why Helen at that point was suspicious of her. So if you happen to know why, or maybe I need to watch it again, but I didn't understand why she was suspicious of Olive. Anyway, she goes in and she tells Olive that Guy and a friend are hiding out, and she tells Olive that they're at the boathouse, which we know isn't true. They're in an apartment or shop somewhere in the city. Again, I don't really know London very well, even though I need to because I need to get out there, but they're not where Helen says. And so we know at the end, Olive sees all these revenant vampires taking over the boathouse and killing all the Coven people. So I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. So yes, we know that Olive is working against Helen, and Helen suspects that Olive is working against her. So Helen goes into that pub where we hear one Mr. Lestat de Liancourt talking about his baby Louis. I'm guessing that's who he's talking about. Of course, most of the songs are going to be about Louis. Anyway, she goes into the bathroom, the men's bathroom. She goes into like the condom dispenser and takes out a gun. My question is, was that gun left specifically for her to take today? Is that just a gun they keep in that place because they have all these missions all the time and they just want to tell people easily, okay, the gun at the pub on the street, go in the condom dispenser and take it? Or was it meant for a guy? Was it meant for a guy? It was in the men's washroom. Like, women go into the men's washroom all the time, especially at like a club or a pub. When the women's washroom is full, I go into men's washrooms all the time. Anyway, who does she want to use it on? The only person I think she could use it on is Olive, right? Because she can't use it on Jasper. He's a vampire. And she's not going to use it on Guy. She might use it on Doris. Okay, so Helen and Olive, and they're at odds. So earlier on, I think in episode 3, Olive mentioned to Guy that Helen's just kind of obsessed with the 752. It's kind of an old wives' tale and, supernatural lore. It doesn't really exist. We know that she believes it exists, and it does exist. So that was a lie. And with Olive, okay, so Olive is Chrysalis. Chrysalis was the name we saw on that card that Soledad took out in the very first episode. So she is the person. Again, I had no context for what that meant or who that was supposed to be. So you've got Chrysalis, the butterfly who flits around. Social butterfly. She's social enough with Jasper because he knows about it through her, and she is that olive branch to Jasper. So my question, this has me asking so many questions. I'm guessing that Olive found out that Helen was on a mission to find the 752 using this guy, and so she volunteered, or however it worked out. She was and ended up being Guy's chaperone. So she would follow him. And so when if he eventually finds the 752, she can pounce on him, take the 752 to Jasper before Guy has the opportunity to give it to Helen, I'm guessing. But then it has me asking questions too, because if Olive was around and kind of stalking Guy the entire time, or just being his chaperone, really, how come she couldn't have taken it from Kevis that night? Because we see her, she was watching them outside of the pub when they first met, Guy and Kevis first met. And obviously we saw them on the dance floor that night. And Kevis presumably we didn't see it. Who knows if she checked it? I don't know the logistics of the whereabouts of this bag, but you think that she'd be able to get it from Kevis. And if she and Kevis were kissing and stuff, and they seem to have known each other, they didn't just meet each other right then, or maybe, who knows, I don't know. But I feel as though Olive, she could have used her charms to get it from Kevis as well. Unless Kevis, she was a witch who could seduce, maybe she could seduce her out. I don't know. I don't know, but I feel as though Olive had pretty good proximity to this thing, and she could have gotten it herself. I don't know. Am I wrong? You know what? I feel as though I need to look at that playback of the scene again, because me confused. Let me look at it right now. It's not very clear because we see the replay and we see her stalking and zoning in on Guy on the dance floor. So I don't know. I feel as though it's kind of weird. I'm kind of surprised. What is she and Jasper's arrangement? How long have they been in cahoots with each other? They just have, because she's from New York, as I mentioned in the first or the second episode, the accents. She has an American accent. So is she, or has she this entire time been Jasper's tie to New York, to the New York mother house? Maybe, possibly. Now let's talk about Doris, because I thought she was sus since the first episode we saw her, because she just always appears out of nowhere. She's always there helping Guy. She doesn't know this guy. She knows a little bit about him, but okay. So it's so funny, when I rewatched the episode, I saw when she was packing up her stuff from the boathouse, she's putting a book in her bag, and I'm assuming that was the 752 just right there. Let me see at the very end. It's in her bag underneath the bed. So it's hiding in plain sight. Guy doesn't even realize, and he can tell that she's holding something back, but he can't really read her mind, and she's not being forthcoming. So now I have all sorts of questions as to how she got the book, because the book was in Kevis's bag the night Kevis was killed. So she took the book before the police got there to investigate the scene. So she and Kevis were sisters, essentially. They were in the same coven. So why would she do that? Because clearly there are a couple things going on. So a vampire killed Kevis and Archie. That vampire wouldn't have been Jasper, because Jasper was working very well with Archie. Archie was his little agent, so he wouldn't kill him. And plus, he didn't get the book anyway. So it's not Jasper, and it's not the Revenants, because the Revenants would have to have been sicked by Jasper, and he didn't do that unless somebody else has a little clicker thing. They're able to do that, which I see no evidence of. So I don't really know. So yeah, so Doris went in and she took it. Why did she take it? And did she take, and how, yeah, how did she know it was there? How did she know that Kevis was no longer around, alive, to keep it safe? What is her deal exactly? So, clearly she and Jasper aren't associates of any type. I don't know if it's a vampire witch situation. They just don't mesh, or whatever the case is. But also, okay, so she has it. What does she really want with it? I don't really know what she wants with it, because we don't really know much about her backstory, or even much about these witches to understand why. Is she a Mayfair witch? I don't know. I have no idea. So I hope that they give a nice, clear explanation as to why she wants it and why she took it and how she ended up getting it. If you guys have theories, let me know. But also, I have to say this, Doris, again, I was sus of her before. She's really bad because she knew, she had an inclination that, her people back at the boathouse, they were going to go down. Things were going to happen to them. And she might have even had a sensation when the vampires took after them to, attack them, that it was going on at that moment. And she was fine. So she doesn't have a code. So again, I like the devil I know. I know Jasper has his own motives and he does things. But Doris, she has her own motive and she does things too, but she doesn't care about the people around her. She doesn't have the integrity. So she has a lot of splaining to do next week. So thinking about the vampire who could have killed Kevis and Archie, again, it's not Jasper, it's not his revenants. I have zero evidence to support this, but it could be Armand. I don't know, maybe. Armand's not a good guy. I'm joking. I like to hate on Armand sometimes. And again, I love Asad Zaman, but like Armand, I can't stand him. But yeah, I can't blame this on him in all fairness to that gremlin. So yeah, so that is basically it. There are some random things I took note of. I wrote them down. So one thing I noticed in that safe house that Guy and Doris are in, the wig, there was a wig head and there was a wig on it. And it looked pretty close to Ridge's hairstyle. So it was a very distinct hairstyle that I hope not many people have there in London. So Jasper taught me a new word, venal. Never heard of it before. Looked it up. It means showing susceptibility to bribery or being motivated by susceptibility to bribery. So, all the Talamasca folks, they're very susceptible to bribes. They love bribes. Bring it on. Raglan, Olive, Owen, everybody. So there you go. And also a complete random side note. I was on the subway last week, Wednesday, and I saw a little poster. It was for a play, and guess who's starring in that play here in Toronto? Elizabeth McGovern, Helen. So I saw it, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that. And then I Googled it when I got back home, and I realized the theater that she's playing with is a hop, skip, and a jump away from my house on Yonge Street. I pass by there several times a week. So perhaps, I don't think I'll have time to see it, but perhaps I'll see her on the road, like how I saw, Sam and Delaney and Jacob and Eric when they were here filming. We'll see. So another side note, last year I was in my condo, either in the elevator or at the elevator bay with me, a man, and a woman. And so these were separate people. They didn't live together or anything. They weren't a couple. And so we're just like small talking and stuff. And so the man left, and so it's me and the woman. And she's like, do you know who that is? And I said, no, who is that? She's like, he was in Lord of the Rings. His name is Billy Boyd. I'm like, oh, I actually have never watched Lord of the Rings before, even though I worked in a movie theater when that came out back in the day. So I'm like, oh, that's so neat. And so it turns out that at that time he was filming, or he was in a play in that same theater. And so he lived in my building because it's very close to that theater. So it makes sense. So I wonder if Elizabeth lives in my building. That would be kind of funny. I'll let you know if she does. Anyway, that is all I have to say for this. Again, I have so many questions, not really many answers for you all. But if you have the answers for me, please leave them in the comments. If they drop a lot of sneak peeks like they did last week for the finale, I might come back on like Thursday or Friday and talk about it and like my theories and stuff. But if not, I will definitely be back next week, Monday or Tuesday, to review the finale of this show. I have some other things planned as well. So make sure you again like, share, and subscribe. Come back here, put your notification bell so you don't forget. And I'll see you later on I See Melanie. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.